Hi, thank you for joining us this morning. Today we'll be looking at the study in the Netherlands. Particularly, we've got an insider guide to study in the Netherlands. Just a little bit about SPW Careers before we start. A lot of you may know us because we work in your schools, but for those who don't, we are a careers and university guidance provider working with international students in many of the top schools around the world and in the UK. So I spend lots of our time supporting international students who explore universities in countries pretty much everywhere, including lots of students who we've supported into the Netherlands. The support we provide includes advice on making informed decisions, covering courses, universities, application process, visas and funding, lifestyle, and the education as a whole, everything that we'll be looking at in the next half hour during this session as well. We do this through helping students to think about and decide on future pathways, using a combination of psychometric testing, one-to-one interviews, guidance, comprehensive resources, online support, helpline support, curriculum support for schools, helpline support, newsletters, etc. Anything that a school needs to support their students, we're here to help. Our current client schools cover the UK, Europe, Asia, and Africa, and our reach is growing year on year. So if we don't work with you at the moment and you want us to work with you, please do contact. We'll give some details at the end of the presentation. We are more than happy to chat about what we do. Today we are joined by Dave Green, who is based in the Netherlands, and Karen, who is one of our founders and directors. So just a little bit about myself first, I think would be useful to say hello, right? So my name is Mark, I'm one of the founders and directors of SPW Careers. I am currently working in my home office, which is in Swindon. So if you're in the UK, you'll know where Swindon is. So I'm halfway between London and Cardiff, exactly halfway between London and Cardiff, and around 45 minutes from Oxford, for those of you who don't know where Swindon is. Karen is in South Oxfordshire. Karen, do you want to explain to people, people who don't know the UK where South Oxfordshire is?
Yeah, I'm in a place called Henley-on-Thames. If anybody is interested in rowing, they'll have heard of Henley-on-Thames. If you aren't, just geographically where it is probably very roughly midway between Oxford and London. Okay. And Dave, tell us about the Netherlands.
Yes, good morning and welcome to the Netherlands. I live in a town south of the Netherlands called Breda, and I have been a teacher and tutor, head of IT in the UK for 19 years, and then came to the Netherlands in 2006 and started teaching IB, economics, ITGS, and IGCSE. I work in Rotterdam, but obviously at the moment I'm sat in my living room in Breda, and find that the Netherlands is a very welcoming, very friendly, pleasant country to live and work in. The Dutch are very tolerant of people from overseas and like to impress by showing off how well they speak English and other languages.
So I suppose lots of our international students who have looked at Netherlands will know Breda because it's got a well-known university that certainly international students go to. How far is Breda from Amsterdam then, Dave, would you say?
It's about 60-minute train ride from Amsterdam. Breda is actually on the only 5 kilometers from the Belgian border. But the Netherlands is very transversable by bus or train, so you're normally only a couple of hours from anywhere in the Netherlands. And I can get to somewhere like The Hague, for example, in under an hour by a very good train route.
Yeah, I remember my visits to the Netherlands. It's just perfect, isn't it? You land at the airport, the train station's in the airport, trains going absolutely everywhere. I've jumped on trains to Amsterdam, to Rotterdam, to Eindhoven, accidentally to Eindhoven, got on the wrong train, but I visited it anyway. And it's so simple and such a small country in some ways if we're comparing it to obviously lots of the bigger. So compare it to the US, it's such a small country you can get anywhere quite quickly. Right. Okay, thanks for those introductions. So, I just wanted to quickly sort of put a couple of quick disclaimers in here on what we'll be doing. So, as such, we're going to focus on English taught courses in the Netherlands. Myself and Karen support students around the world who are looking for particularly English taught courses. And there are English taught courses in pretty much every country, so please do contact us and speak to us if you are exploring other areas. I recently did a guide to Sweden and lots of opportunities there as well, but clearly in Europe, most countries offer courses taught in English, but today we are just focusing on those in the Netherlands. So Karen, I believe you have a question for Dave.
Yeah. So the Netherlands, Dave, like some other countries, but unlike the UK, have got different types of universities with different styles, application systems, etc. Perhaps you could kick us off by giving an overview of the Dutch university system, please.
Yes, there's three main types of university in the Netherlands. There's the traditional research university. There's universities of applied sciences, which are called the hogeschool. And the third type are the university colleges. We'll talk a little bit about those in a minute. The research universities have obviously a very old tradition. Rotterdam, Leiden, Maastricht. If people haven't actually been to the Netherlands, they might have heard of those universities. And the courses that they have are very large courses. So if you study economics in Rotterdam, for example, you're likely to be in a lecture hall with about 800 other students. The universities of applied science tend to be a little smaller. They're more vocational courses, but that rule is not 100%. And they tend to have slightly smaller class sizes. The university colleges are a very interesting development, a fairly recent development within the last 5 or 10 years, some of them, where the focus is on much smaller classes, more sort of IB-sized classes, school-sized classes, and have programs of study which focus on the final subject much later on in the course. So you have the opportunity to experiment, look at different modules, and they actually say build your own course out of the courses that are offered by the university. There's also quite a bit of sharing between the universities. So, for example, if you study in Leiden University, you might well find you going to Rotterdam University for some of your lectures, and so there is this sort of swapping around. And there's a fourth type of university, which are the sort of the hotels, business management hotel schools, and they're slightly different, but basically all of those types of universities will give you a bachelor in arts or science or something along those lines, which you can then transfer at a later stage to a master's course once you've successfully completed your undergraduate courses.
Okay, so we've got students that are potentially interested in each of those different types of universities, but the university colleges are of particular interest to our students, especially those coming from an IB background that you mentioned, not exclusively though, but particularly. So the liberal arts and science model, allowing students to cover a breadth of subjects from a global perspective, particularly appeals. Could you please talk a bit more about your experience with university colleges and your students who've gone in that direction?
Well, the university colleges, I actually love the idea. It's a good match to for a student that doesn't want to sit anonymously in a large lecture theatre making lots of notes, but actually wants to be interactive, wants to take part in the lessons in the lectures, and be more investigational in the approach to the learning, which of course suits those types of secondary school courses, such as the IB, where that has been going on. An interesting thing about the University College is that they are much more rigid, more strict on the application process. So whilst it's fairly easy to get into one of the research universities, I'll clarify that a little bit later, it's a little bit more of a challenge to get into the University College, because you have to go for an interview and you have to be internationally committed to that concept. I'll give you an example of the University College of Leiden, which is actually in The Hague. So that's an interesting quirk about that one. It's a very large building just by the central station in The Hague, and the accommodation is on the top of the building, and the lecture classrooms, they're more classrooms than lecture theatres as such, are on the bottom. So the concept is that you will live in that building, you will work in that building, you will be around and working with your group of colleagues working towards your degree. The University College of Roosevelt, which is south west of the Netherlands, towards the coast. There is part of it which is an old 1600s town hall, which has been converted into the admin and a small lecture theatre for about 100 students. And the accommodation it's like a little village just outside of the main part of the university. So again, you get the feeling of being included more with that sort of university.
Okay. So we're going to come on and talk a bit more detail later about the application process, different systems, that sort of thing. So while in general, the Dutch application system tends to be more flexible than some other countries, I'm wondering if this is a good time to maybe talk about numerous fixes, and if you could explain a little bit more about that for those who aren't aware what this is about. Yeah,
there's a few courses in the Netherlands, particularly at the research universities, which are limited on numbers. They tend to be things like for medicine, and the numerous fixes process is that they can only offer a certain number of places, and they may do various things in order to ensure that you're put into a pecking order, if you like, with the application. So with if you wanted to apply for medicine at Utrecht, for example, then you would have to take a written exam, and they give you and various other things, and then they give you a number, and if there's 500 places and your number is 515, 14 other people need to drop out for you to be offered a place there. So it can be quite nerve-wracking, and I've had a student in the past that has successfully applied, but got quite a high number, and then didn't get low enough in order for them to be able to get in. When you apply, you have to apply through a central system called StudyLink, and to the university itself, and you're only allowed to apply for a couple of the numerous fixes courses, but other than that, you're allowed to apply for 5 courses in the Netherlands. Right. There's not as many. There's not as many numerous fixes courses now as there once were, so it's going in the right direction. The university colleges are allowed to set rules for being successful. So they might set that you have to have certain subjects, or you might have to have a certain number of points, but generally across the Netherlands, there's not those restrictions. So that's why we say it's fairly easy to be offered a place in the Netherlands. However, it's not so easy to stay, and that in some of the research universities, for example, economics again at Rotterdam, around about 40 to 46% of the students don't go on into the second year. So
right, so sorry, I'm going to jump in because we've jumped ahead. Wonderful.
Okay, sorry.
No. We want you to jump ahead. So I've clicked onto the next slide. So entry, we sort of moved on to entry requirements, which is perfect. I just wanted to just slightly go back to restrictions. So sort of from our sort of guidance point of view, that very much means when we're advising students who are looking at those courses about backup plans. So we would obviously say, well, if you're applying for new restrictions courses, you need backup plans. Be those applying to, well, we use medicine as the example, be those applying to medicine in other countries, or be those looking at biological science options as well. And I'm guessing that would be the advice from all three of us really on that, wouldn't it? Yeah. So really important to our students to remember that if you're applying to those numerous fixers courses, ensure you've got a backup plan, be that your home country or another country around the world, or if you're exploring the Netherlands and really want to go there, look at other options. Maybe want to expand a little bit on entry requirements and how that system works, because I know it is unusual, certainly for our UK students, and I think our French students will be well aware of how that system works. It's very similar to their system, that if you don't do well in that first year, you're out. But maybe just explain that a bit more might be useful, Dave.
Well, the issue for somebody coming in from the country from outside is, of course, that if you're not going forward into the second year, your choices are very, very limited, because the options of being able to go and apply for another course are greatly reduced. And certainly it's very important that if you're a borderline student in terms of you think your grades aren't going to be really, really very good, it's probably best not to apply to a research university unless you're absolutely sure that you're going to do well in that subject. It might be worth looking at perhaps doing some of the foundation courses that the universities offer, because they do all offer courses that will enable you to ease your way in, foundation programs that enable you to ease your way into the university course. And so that might be something that you would consider doing first. The other consideration is that if you are applying to a university college, and to some extent the Hogescholen as well, they tend to be more nurturing and will help you through, and will not want to lose you at the end of the first year. The research universities, they have, they're generally oversubscribed, and so therefore will not be so, I don't want to sound harsh, but they will, if you don't pass the exams, then you're going to be out.
They have high expectations is a nice word.
Yeah.
The way I tend to explain it is it's a different point of the filtering process. Basically, there's like some countries filter in advance, others are more open, like Holland, and believe in giving people a chance. But then the filtering process takes place at the end of that first year. So it's about being aware of that. Yeah.
And this is government led as well. So it's actually a strategy of the government to make their universities open for all. But obviously you have to therefore perform at the level that they're expected in order for you to stay.
I know, again, our French students will definitely be aware of that. That's very much how the system works in France as well. So we've seen students being asked for transcripts and other things. And is that commonplace for applications?
There is a move in the Netherlands away from predicted grades. Predicted grades are becoming to be seen by the Dutch universities as not as reliable as some of the other evidence that there might be. So, for example, your students reports transcripts, mock exams possibly, if you do that, are seen to be evidence that the universities are working towards. In fact, there was even an email that went out earlier this month that said from one university that they would prefer now that students apply a little later so that they have a large amount of data, of report data to submit. Now, there's a danger of that, of course, and it goes against, I think, our advice usually, which is apply as soon as possible, so that get your application in as quickly as you possibly can. So there's obviously going to be a balance there of when you get your application in. Some universities, some of the research universities want personal, not so much personal statements, but they will ask 4 or 5 questions which they will want you to respond to in your application. And those types of things expect you to be familiar with the course, familiar with internationalism, particularly if you're going on to a course where there's going to be expected to be a large number of international students, and ask questions such as, what do you, what have you done in your last 2 or 3 years to welcome somebody into an unfamiliar situation? And I found with my students is that it's sometimes a bit of a oh yeah moment when you say, but hold on a minute, what was it like when you came to an international school for the first time? Did you help your friends? Did you help? And that's exactly what they're looking at. They're looking at that sort of aspect more and more as part of the application. But there's not a formal personal statement as such as there is with the UK. But what I found is that if you go to the UCAS website for UK applications and look at what you should write for a personal statement, those sorts of statements are perfect for what the Dutch are looking for. So it's not a waste of time if you read up on writing a personal statement.
Perfect, Dave. I've clicked onto StudyLink. I think it's maybe important for me just to run a little bit about this. Now, not all our students understand the UCAS system, because why would they if they're not applying to the UK? It's always something I remind people who are talking to students really as well. Don't compare it to the UCAS if they've never done UCAS. But those who are listening who do know the UCAS system, I think it's important to understand that StudyLink is not the UCAS system. It's a starting point for your application, as Dave's ran through there really well. Actually, don't presume there's one application that will do. That goes to all universities. They will come back to you with offers. Each individual university will ask for individual things. You often also then have to apply to those universities and tick those boxes. They often all have different deadline dates. So it shouldn't be a presumption, if you do know the UCAS system, that once you've done that, sit back, it will all happen to you. It is a very different process. And we've not got long on this bit, Dave, and in some ways it's almost like delving through it, but maybe, and we've covered this in quite a lot of detail already, but maybe just a couple of sentences on that in a way. Is that sort of how you see it as well?
There's sort of a multiple attack really on this problem. The first thing you want to do is to go to the university website and see what the courses are that you want to do. Then you go into StudyLink and make that application. That then triggers a system whereby the university is informed, who will then send you a link to their own system, which you then go through the various instructions and various hoops that are on their online system. Some of the universities do it slightly different, and so it is my best advice, as always, is go and check the application section of the website for the specific what I do in what order, but basically that is the system, that you cannot be offered a place unless you have gone through the various hoops of StudyLink, but you also won't be offered a place unless you've gone through the various hoops that the university wants you to as well.
Yeah, and certainly a lot of our students will need to have a look at the international admissions sections of those universities' websites as well. Often, maybe slightly different requirements, certainly requirements of our English ability if they're applying for English taught courses, etc. Yeah. So please check those. So I think, as I said, the warning from this bit is StudyLink is not, for those of you who know UCAS, studying is not UCAS. Don't just put them on there and sit back and ignore everything else you get sent.
Yeah.
So we've covered basic procedure generally. So
do watch
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, do watch your emails after you've gone through that process. Check them regularly and reply and do what they ask in the emails. I've had students, again, unfortunately, that have ignored an email that has come in from the university because they think the process is all finished, and then found that in fact they're not off the price because they haven't done X, Y, or Z by the given deadlines that you need to do them.
All right, and I think that neatly moves on to finance. What's that funding of that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, finance. Here is a nightmare really for particularly British students, but generally speaking, if you're coming from outside of the Netherlands, you'll pay the EU fee if you're coming from the EU. If you're coming from outside of the EU, you'll pay various fees. I mean, I'll give you some examples. If you study environmental science and sustainable energy, I should have picked a better one to say, to do a BSc, this is at Avon's University. This will cost you 8,296 per year for a 4-year course, and it's worth reminding that there are courses that are 3 years and 4 years, whereas if you did a BA in creative business studies, that is going to cost you 15,000 per year for a 3-year course. So it varies dramatically depending on the course. The tendency is the business courses, economics, and those sorts of courses which don't involve work are cheaper. And obviously, if you're going to do medicine, then it's going to be even more than that, 32,000 euros a year, something along those lines. Possibly. So it does vary quite considerably.
Sorry, what's your experience of scholarships?
Yeah, my experience mostly is that my students haven't been able to obtain them, or that they're far and few between, but there are a few out there. The one particular one that I'm thinking of is the Holland Scholarship Program. And Googling that or will take you to their link, and there are ways of you being able to get help from the government and from organizations on the funding, but it's not like the American system where you're almost guaranteed to get some sort of scholarship to do something. You have to actually earn it. And it's more difficult to actually obtain.
Right. And I suppose it is worth reminding our UK students, passport holders, breaking the bad news to them that they will be classed as international students moving forward. So certainly worth remembering. Although I suppose it is worth remembering as well. Okay, they'll need to pay up front for the courses as such. But actually, their international fees in the Netherlands, it sort of equates generally quite neatly to fees for UK universities, but as I said, they will need that money though, which is slightly different. So again, certainly the SPW Careers team can support with understanding that process. I did realise I skipped one of the slides were around deadline dates. So I did show that slide as you was talking, so I do apologise for that. But I have shown the slide. So yeah, lots of ways we can lots of sort of websites here which support with exploring options. Certainly some of the ones we use are certainly mentioned here, and again we will ensure that our schools have access to this, and please do contact and we can supply the slides as well, so schools can sort of use the slides. Any particular favourites, Dave? Anything you
well, my favourite is Study in Holland because it's easy to remember, but there is the bachelorsportal.com as well, which many of you, if you just search for international universities, will come. The only caveat I have to say is if you use those search engines, they do not show the university colleges, and so you have to do that research separately, and that's quite important because you may be looking, say, for example, to do law, and you look at the research university list and you look at the Hogeschool list and find that it's not really what you want. But if you go to the university college, there are law courses there, for example, pre-med courses. So if you can't get into the medicine course, you could do a pre-med course. The pre-med course gets you able to do the masters eventually, and then become a doctor in exactly the same the process. It might take a little longer, it might cost slightly different, but the process is there. So my tip on that is do look at the university colleges separately to those search engines. The other thing I'll mention very quickly is that Holland, for those of you that are not aware, Holland isn't the name of the country. North Holland and South Holland are two counties at the top end of the Netherlands. And so if you're talking to people and applying to universities down the south of the Netherlands, Maastricht, Breda, Middelburg, it's worth actually calling the country the Netherlands and not Holland. Some people get quite upset about it. Living down south, I've got to be very careful with my friends that I don't accidentally call it Holland. But most of the Dutch are so laid back; they don't really mind what you call it.
Right. Thank you for all that, Dave. That's we've rattled through at a high pace. We've certainly given lots of information. As I mentioned, we will ensure that any of the schools who contact us will certainly can have access to the slides. We also offer quite a lot of other resources as well, don't we, Karen? Support.
Yeah, we do. I'd just like to say thanks to Dave. That's been really, really interesting. Some of the other, if you want to find out any more about what we do, then please contact us or have a look on our website. Dave is just one of the many fantastic contacts that we've got around the world who are at the coalface, so to speak, actually taking students through the process. So it's a really, really good way of us tapping in and keeping really up to date on information. We deal with schools all around the world, one-to-one with students, but also we support schools themselves. Mark's just brought up an example of one of our country guides that we produce for countries all around the world, explaining and summarising a lot of the sorts of things that we've been talking about today. But we also do webinars, newsletters, and so it goes on, as well as this YouTube channel, which we hope to continue or keep supplied with interesting information going forward. But as I say, if you want to contact us, I think the contact details are at the bottom of the screen at the moment, inquiries at SPW Careers, or look on our website, spwcareers.com, to understand a bit more about what we want to do. And we're always keen to talk to people who want to explore options for university careers guidance internationally.
Yeah, and as I look after our YouTube channel, please subscribe. We are adding videos. We will be adding these. We are not a company who make videos for the sake of making videos and webinars. We make them based on requests from our schools. So we are not going to bombard you. So go and have a look at our channel on YouTube, and please subscribe to that. There will be a video. There is a video on there which is a broader scope about things to consider if you're looking at international universities as well. And myself and Karen spent 10 minutes just exploring, well, why might you look at studying internationally, and things to think about as well. Again, just to say thank you to Dave. Myself and Dave go back a number of years. Dave always complains to me that I don't bring him cake. Previous colleague used to sneak cake through the border for Dave each year.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've let him down. That is my plan. So when we're next in the Netherlands, I will be making a beeline to Breda or Rotterdam where Dave works, and we'll bring a cake with me. So,
lovely. You got to be very careful about that. No new rules apply. For
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, we're not in the EU now, so maybe I'm not allowed to bring
no, got to be very careful.
Right, thanks for everything.
All right.
Again, please do contact us on the inquiries. We are more than happy to share the slides. We have country guides we're happy to share, and really good to see you, Dave.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks
Okay.
for the update. All right.